Brands are fighting for attention, right? Consumer attention. It's swamped where everyone is getting hit and everybody's battling to get our attention. Once you got my attention, the last thing you want to do is piss me off or disappoint me, right? And I think majority of the problems with user experience falls into disappointments and frustration.
You also sort of brought up like what the customer actually wants. And that's a great segue into an empathy workshop. Because if you're not talking to the customer, you're not going to know that. You're not going to know that they actually really value that curated, customized, expert product. And so you might be making assumptions like, oh, these customization modules are cool. Everybody's starting to implement them. We better make the investment. But then you might start to see that you don't need to make the investment because you've already got these people on staff, these wonderful jewelers who are able to create customized products, and you can sell them in a slightly more mass marketed way. And you can also create a lot of copy around that, like really promoting the designers. I think Tiffany's has done a great job with that, with like the Paloma Picasso collection. You add a lot of value by putting a name to it. Obviously Paloma Picasso has quite a famous name, but even spotlighting the people behind the scenes that are doing the work is a really great way to build a connection, a really personal connection. And so an empathy workshop would uncover that for you, to be perfectly honest.
And I think it's very, at this point, it's very valuable to remember what is user experience. Like, you have to understand, like you mentioned something, things breaking on mobile. Brands are fighting for attention, right? Consumer attention. It's swamped where everyone is getting hit and everybody's, battling to get our attention. Once you got my attention, the last thing you want to do is frustration, piss me off, or disappoint me, right? And I think majority of the problems with user experience falls into disappointments and frustration. And this is where empathy workshops, really work, is that you can test certain, hypotheses, you can test certain concepts and ideas with the real people, with real users, before you start to mass market and open it up to, to all of your customers. And so I can't stress enough how, how much effort people need to put in not to disappoint their customers.
And you're honestly, you're not going to know that unless you're asking your customers to look at your product. The observational element of an empathy workshop is just so crucial. If that's not part of your design, you literally cannot be a digital business in this day and age if you don't have a culture of talking to your customers. And part of that culture is having established processes internally so that you're sharing that information. People are taking it seriously. They believe in the research methodologies that you're using. Design research is a real long existing element of the practice of the craft of design. If you do design school, you're going to learn design research. You can do master's programs in design research. And so understanding the people behind the product, the people that you're building for, you just can't do it without actually putting it in front of a customer. So some different types of empathy workshops. We've talked a little bit about how you share the information internally. And so what I usually see in when a workshop like this is necessary is that there's probably already some research that's happening. You have search analytics. You are able to get transcripts from your customer support team. Maybe, you've gone out and asked your mom to test out whatever design you're working on. And so you've got kind of some sort of data about what your customer is doing with your product, and you need to make sense of it. So there's a huge element of sense making that comes along with a lot of these activities. Personas are probably the most common type of outcome of an empathy workshop. They're fairly controversial in terms of do people use them? How accurate are they? Demographic data, people kind of will take seriously and not take seriously. But I think pain points, challenges, needs, all of the information that's kind of included in a persona, if you don't have it documented somewhere, it's not useful. You can also, there have started to emerge a lot of variations on persona. So a jobs to be done profile, where you're focusing on what is the what job is your platform or your product designed to solve for? How are you helping people get something done? You can write job stories. You can create a job map to kind of understand the landscape in which people are interacting with your product to achieve something to progress forward in their lives. Empathy maps, experience mapping, service delivery, so where you're looking at the entire ecosystem of what you're delivering, and then the touch point, the touch points, like documenting those touch points of what's like how are they coming to your site? How are they interacting with your product description page? What is the checkout experience like for them? All of these sorts of mapping elements can kind of help you understand, like, where do we really need our product to be most effective, right? A frustrating checkout is a terrible place to lose a customer. And so if you're not talking to the customers, if you're not looking closely at how your checkout is working, then you are probably losing customers, almost certainly. And then the same with even just from a planning perspective. If you want a more formalized process, if you aren't doing this at all, and you want to introduce more research, we can help workshop ways and brainstorm ideas where you can have, something a little bit more formal, where people are taking the work more seriously. And then same with user scenarios, user stories, developing documentation during the design phase that then can feed into the agile system that your IT team or your development team is working with. So you can kind of have that shared documentation across both parts of the organization.